everyone. This is Terri A. Wilson, and I am here with another pop-up interview. If you've seen my pop-up interviews before and you came back to check out this one, thank you very much. If this is your first time with us, thank you very much. I'm happy to have you. I know there's a lot of things in our life that are taking time and using our time, and so thanks for spending some time with me so I can sit and introduce you to some great, wonderful book people. The best way to find out about a pop-up interview is to hit the bell button down below and subscribe to this channel. When you do that, every time I publish a video, you will get notification. The videos are randomly published because I randomly speak to my speakers whenever it's convenient for me and for them. We get together, hence the name Pop-Up Interviews. And I'm really excited tonight to talk to C.M. Peters. Hi, C.M. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. And you're gonna like her too. So when you hit that little bell button, just hit the thumbs up button and just save yourself some hassle.
I already did.
So CM, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you write?
I write pretty much everything, I would say. I haven't written officially for such a long time. I write romance. My upcoming novel is contemporary romance. I've written ghost stories. I've written some erotica here and there, but at my start with fan fiction, before I even knew what fan fiction was, I just didn't know. In my early teens,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people have tried, but lately I've been touching a lot of romance stuff, mostly because that's what inspires me the most. I have a fantasy series that I'm editing right now that I'm hoping to put out sometime in the next year or two, if possible, that also contains romance. I think I'm a romantic at heart, so there's probably always going to be a romance element in my stuff.
Well, and I think that's a good thing. I like romance in all fields of all subgenres, I guess is the technical term to call it, because I just think, the connection that you feel with other people, that's what helps us all survive.
Yeah, that's very true.
And I mean, we're all stuck here on this floating ball of gas, and we're all trying to figure things out, but it's when we do connect on any kind of a level, I think it just helps make everything just a little bit better.
Exactly. And why not bring that in another way to people? Because we're not all that lucky to have love in our lives. So if I can bring that to someone else with what I write, then good.
Right. And I've always enjoyed romance too, just because, especially when my kids were younger, I homeschool, so my kids are with me like all the time, which is good and bad. But when they were really young, I used the romance books that I was reading as a way for me to escape and take kind of a mental vacation. And I really like that. Now, I will say, let's go back to, you said you also talked about fantasy. And I will say fantasy does the same thing. Actually, probably, if I'm honest, books in general help me escape. I don't think I've interviewed one person yet who only writes and reads everything in one genre. It's like we all kind of just love books and we just kind of mash it all together.
Yeah, I'm an idea hoarder. I have notebooks of different genre stuff. I have stuff for a historical novel that's fully outlined. It's just waiting there right now. I have ideas for a crime novel. It's just, I go where my brain leads me. And these days, though, my brain is a shiny squirrel, so I have to follow where it goes. But I've never been one to read. I can binge one genre for a while, but after a certain period, I have to switch because I'm saturated.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's very rare that I will stick with one genre for a long time.
Yeah, I can see that. Now, let's talk a little bit about the ghost story.
Sure.
I'm interested in that. Tell us about your ghost story.
The ghost story, I have actually two different ones. I know you recently had a pop-up interview with Harley Easton, and Harley is a great friend of mine, and she brought me in this world with storytellers. And there was Haunt, an anthology that a charity anthology that we did together. It was called The Bee Room, and it's about a young woman that inherits a manor that's been in her family, in her mother's family forever. But when she gets there, there are very weird things going on with the house, and she seems to be the only one seeing them. And she starts finding pictures and letters because her mother had some issues, which they thought was mental health issues at the time, which were not. And she starts finding letters that keep telling her not to go into the bee room because there's something in the bee room. And of course, what does she want to do? She wants to go in the bee room, of
Of
course.
course.
Of course.
Of course.
So I won't spoil and tell you what's in the bee room, but there's something there, and she does find it. And the other one is something I published around Halloween last year, Hillside House. I'm really like you probably guessed it by now with the manor. I'm inspired by old houses a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I follow a few Facebook pages that, like, for the love of old houses, show you the inside, and I love that because it's really inspiring. And it's this army man who comes home because he has to sell the family house. His parents have passed. His sister is nowhere to be found, and very odd things start happening in the house, but only when he's there, only at certain time of day. And he thinks his sister is hiding in the house because it's a huge one with different wings, and it's like a cat and mouse game at the same time. And you wonder, is she really there? Is she not? Are the parents there haunting the house or not? So it's a small novella, about 50 pages. It's not that long, but it was inspired by a movie I saw. And I actually started writing the story while watching the movie because it was like, I need to write it now, otherwise I'm going to forget.
Wow.
Yeah, so this one is available, has been available since last Halloween. But I love ghost stories. I'm really a scaredy cat, but I love writing ghost stories. I love cliffhangers and things like that to scare other people, just not myself.
Yeah, I understand that. Now, do you, in real life, do you believe in ghosts?
Oh, I do. I've had some experiences personally, so I'm
Okay.
a big believer in ghosts and spirits.
And I'm guessing you also believe that the houses that we live in have spirits and stuff too.
Definitely. And I would say in the apartment I am right now, I'm pretty sure there's someone or a few people because my cats will look where there's nothing. And I believe also that cats see that kind of thing, but I felt certain presences here and there. I'm sorry if
Mhm.
my English is weird at odd times because if your listeners don't know, I'm French, so sometimes the words get mixed up for me.
You're
Uh,
doing fine.
uh, so I
I speak English, and sometimes the words get mixed up for me.
uh, so yeah, I feel a presence once in a while, and I would say that I've been to a few psychic conferences in the last few years, and I always feel them stronger around those conferences. And there's one coming up in a few months, so I'm pretty sure that's going to happen again. And I also worked during my college years on an island. I don't know, maybe if you have listeners that are Irish, they know a bit about Quarantine Island that's in Quebec. It's an island where the Irish had to go through to be quarantined during the potato famine. And I worked on that island because it's a tourist place now that you can visit. And there's, I would say, 5,000 to 7,000 people buried there, the 2.5 square mile island. So trust me, there are spirits there.
Wow.
I worked there for a week and I've had enough. It's very creepy. It's very,
Wow.
I suggest to anyone to go visit. I would go visit again, but I'd never stay overnight again, ever. It was way too strong for me. And just talking about it makes me creeped out again.
Yeah, I can tell. You're like,
Yeah,
oh, okay, change the subject. Let's
yeah,
talk about Christmas or something. Fluffy bunnies. Let's talk about fluffy bunnies.
sure.
Um, are you, when you write, it sounds like you're probably a writer who draws a lot on personal experiences.
I tend to, yes.
And how do you ever worry that maybe if somebody reads your book, they might recognize themselves?
It's not something that worries me necessarily, because I've had people that say that, not that they necessarily recognize themselves, but they recognize the experience and it helps
Okay.
them. So I'm telling myself, if my story can help somebody or my experiences can help somebody, that's a good thing. But because I've heard somewhere when I started writing more seriously, someone was saying, write what you know. And
Yeah.
at first, I really did follow that. But at some point, what I knew wasn't enough.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a person that researches a lot. I outline like notebooks before I start writing. So I like reading from other people's experiences. I like to put mine into my books, but I also like to go beyond that, because otherwise I don't feel like I'm growing as a writer anyway.
All right.
So yeah.
Well, it is very easy to get set in our writer ways.
Yeah.
And so we do have to constantly keep challenging ourselves to learn how to create better characters, create better dialogue, or, write out a different genre. I recently did some science fiction work, which I'm not a science fiction writer,
Okay.
but I wanted to do it only because it was a challenge.
Yes, and I love challenges.
Yeah. And
I
so, oh,
please
let's
go.
go ahead.
No, I was going to say, in my early, when I still wrote fan fiction, my favorite part of writing stories is dialogue. I
Yeah.
love banter, witty banter, or just profound angst between characters. It's something I love to do. But I had this challenge from a friend that says, are you able to write a whole story, like at least, let's say, 2,000 words without one word of dialogue? I was like, I'm going to try. And I succeeded. So I know I can do this, but challenges are not always that, well, not that it was easy, because it wasn't, because everything has to go through at least one character. I wasn't even allowed to have inner thoughts, inner dialogue. It was
Wow.
everything on the feeling of like cameras seeing the characters. So that's a little harder to do. But I love a challenge. Like I was saying earlier, I have ideas for a crime novel. I do watch an occasional crime story on TV or crime series, but I'm not a specialist. But it's a big challenge that I do want to accomplish at some point. Do all the research that comes with it, because it's out of my comfort zone. And I do
Hmm.
think that as authors, we should get out of our comfort zones, because I'm scared of repeating myself. I don't consider it the imposter syndrome, but the repeating syndrome, and
Mm.
that's not something I want to do. That's why I try to touch different genres.
When you were writing your fan fiction, what stories were you following? What
Uh,
TV shows or movies?
in my case, a lot of the Marvel universe. I'm
Okay.
a big geek with Marvel, and I had a few with the Sherlock universe, though he's very difficult to write, because the brain on that man is very difficult to follow for those who know it. It was mostly around those that I tried. Supernatural as well once in a while. I'm a big fan of that show, even if it's ending soon.
I
But
know.
I'm so sad. But at least it's on their own terms, so that makes me at least happy. But at some point, I had the desire to write something different, to write something new, and that was when I wrote the fantasy series. There's 2 books of those that I'm actually, like I said, I'm editing, because I wrote them years ago. I still love them. I still want them out, but it's stuff that I wrote so long ago that it's different from what I write now. I evolved.
Hmm.
So I did a lot of research for that. It's surrounding, actually created Celtic mythology with gods that don't exist in their mythology, but that I've connected with it. So I smoothly went from fan fiction to that with, like, yeah, I went with short stories to two books of about 1,000 pages.
Oh, wow.
I don't
Wow.
do things in a small way.
Yeah, that's a big jump.
Yeah, but I loved every second of it because I'm slowly. That's why it's taking me so long to edit because it's so big.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm working. I have a novel that's going to be published. I'm hoping this year. So I have edits of that coming through. So I'm going. I'm prioritizing what needs to be done first. So I'm taking it slowly to make sure that at least my mythology is correct. Since I created it, no one can challenge me on that. But I still want it to come out nicely.
Oh, yeah, always, always. So you're from France,
No, Quebec, actually.
Quebec. Okay. And you spent some time in Ireland.
No, the Irish quarantine island is in Quebec.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
It's near. It's about an hour from Quebec City. If
Okay.
you're familiar with Quebec, there's Montreal, Quebec City, and it's about right here. But I'm in eastern Quebec at the moment.
Okay. Yeah. So you're in Canada right now then.
Yeah, I
Okay. So I don't know much about Canadian lore or myths or mythology. Is there a lot?
Actually, you'd be surprised. There's a lot because, at least in my area in Quebec, Eastern Ontario, there's a lot of Native American people, which have a lot of different lores, beliefs. So
Okay.
there's a lot of we have different lakes that have like Loch Ness monsters, but different ones for each lake. We have the Memphrey Magog monster, which has never been taken in photography, which makes me laugh all the time. They've never been shot really. There's a lot of different ones, but they're not as well known. Like the Wendigo, for those who know, is part of Native American mythology. But there's more. I don't know as much about Western Canada, the prairies and all that. I'm more familiar with the native ones because I'm small part native, and I'm very interested in that. But we have the Quebec lore as well. We have certain stories about a flying canoe that it's about lumberjacks that wanted to go home for Christmas time. They made a deal with the devil to go home with a flying canoe, and the only thing that they were not allowed to do was kiss anybody, kiss a woman. And the youngest one was a bit defiant and he kissed the prettiest girl. So now they're stuck forever on the flying canoe. So that's one of the legends that we have. It's called the Chasse Galerie in French. There's been songs made about that story actually that are pretty popular.
I never knew that. That's interesting.
Yeah,
I
there's
tend to be, I'm probably more one of those typical Americans that gets in my own little shell and doesn't worry about anybody else.
that's just fine. You have your lore, we have yours. There's one also about dancing. I have no idea what the word is for that in English, but it's little dancing flames at the end of fences in fields of whatever you grow. But I'm not very familiar with that one. I only know what it's called and what it looks like. It comes at certain times of the year that you'll see little fires dancing on fences. But I could not tell you more. I'd have to research on that.
Cool. Do you have a tattoo on your arm?
I do. I have many. It's upside down. It's a fire and water symbol.
Okay.
And this is the constellation for Cancer.
I thought that was a constellation. Is that your zodiac sign?
Yeah, it is. That's my freshest one actually. I had it done this winter.
Oh, wow. That looks pretty good for that being so new.
Yeah, well, it's actually, if you can see, it's really a lot of dots mostly,
Okay.
and the blue ones are the biggest stars of the constellation, and the other ones, the smallest ones. I
Cool.
thought it was pretty because the crab is not something I want tattooed on me.
Yeah, there's so many things that's so many ways it could go wrong.
Exactly. Which which is why I chose the constellation. It's pretty and it means only one thing.
That could be a whole nother pop-up interview that we could do just around
Oh,
that.
and Harley Easton, being Cancer as well, could get in on that, and we lose our minds.
When you're not writing, what do you do with your time?
I chase my cats off the counters a lot because I have two shelter cats that are a load of work, but I love them to death. I'm a radio host. That's what I do full time because I'm a writer only part time. My spare time is a lot of writing and editing these days. I'm also in an improv league. I in improvised theater is what it's, but it's not theater per se, but it's I've never seen it done really. It reminds me a little bit of the show Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Okay.
It's a little bit centered around that. I'm in a league that does that. I occasionally loom, though I'm not that good, but most of my time is devoted to writing because that's my passion.
Okay, so I want to go back to two things you talked about, the radio show and the improv that you do. Is it a music station or is it a talk radio?
Music station.
What kind of music?
I'm on, because we have two stations where I am. I'm on the AC, adult contemporary. So it's a lot of pop, oldies mostly, in French a lot because we have to. We have quotas in Quebec since we're a French province.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been doing this in less than a month. It's going to be 17 years already that I've been.
Wow.
Yeah. That is also a passion. But as you probably noticed, I like talking. So it's not a problem at all.
I have a friend who was in radio, and she let my Girl Scout troop come and tour the radio stations. And then I was talking to her because when I was in Girl Scouts, like, back when we rode dinosaurs to school, the radio stations were a whole lot different than what I saw when we toured the station. It was amazing.
Yeah.
So you have seen a lot. What have been some good changes that have happened in radio?
I would say the numeric era now, that everything works with computers, because it gives us a lot of latitude to get more information by the time we go back on air. Like when big things are happening, we don't always have time to change CDs because I've been through the whole era of numeric. We'd have CDs, 8-track tapes for commercials, vinyls. I was not of the era of vinyls though. I used them mostly to produce commercials. But by the time I started working, they stopped using vinyls. But I still love vinyls just for the sound because they sound amazing. But I would say moving to the numeric digital era helped a lot to give us more autonomy. And also give us time to go to the bathroom because you don't have to change a CD every 3 minutes. That's one thing. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it is.
No, I don't think it sounds ridiculous at all. I was a teacher in my former life, and man, I know about when you get those bathroom breaks. Those are like golden.
Exactly, where you have to run downstairs, hurry up, come back up, change the CD, and you start knowing what song is the longest, so you don't have to run. So that's perfect. But also, well, the fact that we've gone digital, it gives us more a more aerated place to work. There is less stuff around you.
Mm-hmm.
And I have probably the best view ever because my window is out on it's not the ocean technically, out on the sea. So I have boats and the occasional whale spout, seals when we're lucky. So I can't complain.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the improv.
Sure.
How did you get started in that? What kind of stuff do you do, and how long have you been doing it?
I first got in touch with improv. I was in high school about 1,000 years ago.
Did you ride a dinosaur too?
Yeah, I rode with my what you keep saying here. We used to walk to school with our chairs on our backs, but not that bad still. Uh, but I was in, I think, was it seventh or eighth grade? I'm not sure. And I did some of it. I really wasn't good, but I still liked it. And in Quebec, it's kind of well known, and there's a national league that goes to, and they do tournaments in France. Any francophone country in Europe, they do a lot of tours. Um, and I watched it a lot. And when I came back, because the city I'm in right now is where I'm from, but I didn't study here. So when I came back, I found out years later that there was a league. So I was a volunteer for years, and there came time to do a charity game, and they said, "Well, you're in radio, you should try this." I did, and they were like, "Why did you not tell us you were that good?"
Oh, wow.
Because I didn't know. I hadn't played
Mhm.
in years. So I started playing and realized that I might be good, but I'm not that comfortable. There's a reason I do radio, because people don't see me.
Yeah.
And I'm not that comfortable with people seeing me and looking at me all the time.
Hmm.
So I'm still a volunteer. I will play and replace on occasion, but I have a lot more fun cheering on and helping in the wings. But I still love it. More occasionally I'm a rep as well, because the rep is just as important, because they prepare a pacing, like who's going to do what, how many players, what style, what category. That's something I do, because being a rep, you're allowed to be a little mean to players, because that's what they do.
I can't say you being mean to anybody.
I have a hard time being mean with them, actually, because they usually end up making me laugh. You can't be mean if they make you laugh.
That's like trying to discipline your kids when they do something that makes you laugh.
Exactly. Yeah. Like disciplining my cats. I don't have children. I'm a fur mom, and
Uh-huh.
I'm trying to discipline them, and they look at me with those big eyes. What am I supposed to do?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. You just sometimes have to just give it up.
Exactly.
Now, what's interesting is I'm sitting here listening to you talk about these things. You're a writer, you're in radio, you're in improv. All of these things are creative outlets that I see have the potential of feeding into each other
Oh yeah.
and helping you grow in each of these fields. Do you see that as well?
Yeah, I do. I do not use them that much together, weirdly enough, because now that you say it, I'm just realizing that I've never used improv in a story or radio. Did I ever? I wanted to, and I didn't, because it was ending up fan fiction. And I'm trying. I have nothing against fan fiction, because I wrote it for so long, but I'm trying not to. I'm trying to stay in original stuff, but
Mhm.
I've always wanted to write about nighttime DJs, because they have such a different job to do than us during the day, because their listeners are night owls, or they're workers because they
Yep.
work during the night. So I've always wanted to, and now I just might, because I'm telling you about it. It might happen, because my brain is doing this right now.
And you can say, to my dearest friend Terri, thank you for this wonderful idea.
Exactly, exactly. So,
No, but night owl, the world is totally different when the sun goes down.
oh yeah, I worked night shifts back in college,
Hmm.
and I love the quiet part of it a lot. Though I worked in a convenience store gas station, so it wasn't always quiet, but I really enjoyed that, because people are so mellow at night, and nothing seems complicated. So I really like that. But as a radio host, the night ones seem to have, because it's usually men. I don't know about it in the States. I've done pretty much round the clock except the night shifts. I've done all the other ones, but it's usually men that host at night, at least in my area. And they have just such a low tone of voice that will get in your ear. It's like you can't stop listening. you have to listen, because there's, no matter what, they might tell you a recipe for bolognese and you still have to listen.
It's hypnotic.
That's the word, hypnotic, or what do they call it? ASMR?
Oh, yes.
A little bit like that. So you
Yeah.
have to listen to what's coming up next, even if it's a recipe or the weather, whatever, you have to listen.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. I get that a lot.
Yeah.
So you've got a fantasy book that you're hoping to come out
Hmm.
this year or next year, a fantasy series.
Probably next year, with the amount of work I still have on it, probably next year.
Okay. And then I'm sorry, but I forgot what you said you were trying to get released this year.
It will be released at Sincere Publishing. I've worked with them I co-edited an anthology for them last year, if I'm not mistaken. It's a contemporary romance about a woman returning to her hometown, a journalist, wanting to slow down the pace. Well, I said I didn't do with radio, but she's a journalist. It's a different type. So she's a journalist going back to her hometown and getting reacquainted with her people, and she meets the single dad that has a particular story as well. And the getting together is a bit difficult because his children don't see it the same way. So
Mhm.
that's a little bit of a personal experience, because I have a stepmom and a stepdad on both sides. So
Mhm.
I inspired myself a little bit with that story. But this, I'm hoping, coming out this year. We're on the third round of edits. So it's a question of time of when it's coming out, but I'm hoping in 2019.
So the romance, the fantasy, and then what are you working on after that?
I'm attempting to start another romance, but now that we've talked about radio, I might. If it's really bubbling right now, and I'm like, might I stay up to take notes? I might. I just might. Uh,
Cool.
but I have a few things. I have a historical fantasy. I have also another contemporary romance that is outlined, because I never start writing if my outline is not fully ready, if my characters are not fleshed out. I love the research. I think that sometimes I love the research part more than the writing.
Hmm.
So I have that, and I'm still undecided on what I'm going to do next. So that's why I'm editing the fantasy until something hits me.
Now, your historical fantasy, is that more of a steampunk?
No, it's actually Vikings. Uh,
Okay.
I was a big fan of I still am, the series Vikings, and I had an idea to mix up present and past, about two people searching for the same Viking, wondering if either of them are related to that Viking, but past and present will clash in that story. I have a few chapters in, but sometimes the character decides to take a walk and doesn't come back for about a few months. That's what
Mhm.
happened with that. So it's still in the plans. I just don't know when.
And I guess you're probably like a lot of us that all these characters live in your head, right?
Oh
Yeah. Yeah, that happens a lot. So like at night when you can't sleep, that's who you talk to.
oh yeah. I'm trying to figure out. Okay, who's louder right now? You're come
Excuse me.
around and talk a bit louder if you want your story told. Otherwise, I can't do anything for you.
I should have told you, and I should have warned the audience. We're still in pollen season here in the South. And so I just put a cough drop in so that I don't cough all over the place.
We're just barely starting ours right now. It's still pretty cold. We're
Hmm.
in the low 30s right now in my area. I'm hoping we don't get one last snowstorm, but usually around Mother's Day we have one. I still have my winter tires, if that tells you anything, and we're in May.
Wow.
Yeah, we get a lot of snow.
I am in the exact opposite. I'm down in North Carolina, so I'm in the southern states.
Okay, I've been there, wow, about 15 years ago. Was it Raleigh or Charlotte? I was going to South Carolina, but I landed in North Carolina because it was,
I landed in Charlotte
yeah,
because I
but
don't think Raleigh's a big enough airport. Especially, did you fly from Canada?
yeah,
Yeah, you probably landed in Charlotte.
yeah, I
So,
think so. Because I have a friend that lives in northern South Carolina. That
Cool.
sounds like northern South Carolina.
It made sense. It totally makes sense. I get it.
So
I
I was
get it.
there. It's a beautiful area. I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed the warmth.
It's beautiful. The humidity sometimes gets me a little crazy,
Oh, I bet.
but I think I would ultimately take the humidity and the pollen over the snow that I'm sure you guys get up there.
I would trade in a heartbeat. I'm not a snow person at all. I'm not a cold person. I have 2 pairs of socks right now while I'm talking to you in a big sweater.
All right, Sam. Well, I'm gonna let you go for the night, but thank you so much
Thank you for having me. That was
for
wonderful.
stopping by and chatting with us. We're gonna look forward to reading all those books.
Thank you so much. Have a nice night.
Oh, real quick, is your radio station on the iHeart Radio network by any chance?
Or we're not. We're online, but not with iHeartRadio.
Okay. All right, because I was gonna say then we could listen to your show.
I could give you the address if you want to put it in the links, because
Yep.
we are online, just not with iHeart.
Absolutely. Please do that. When we're done, just send me an email real quick, and I'll make sure to include all that.
I will.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, people, for coming and watching my pop-up interview. Like I said before, the best way to find out about pop-up interviews when they happen is to subscribe to this channel. Hit the little bell down below, and then you'll get an email every time I have a video. Now, in the month of June and July, we are taking a hiatus, and I will be back in August. If you are a writer, a blogger, somebody who works with authors, a publisher, a book cover designer, or just somebody who wants to sit and talk about books, let me know. Go to my website, terriawilson.com, and hit the pop-up interview icon, and it will take you to a form that you can fill out so that we can get you on the schedule starting in August. Once again, thank you, everybody, and I hope you have a great night.